Buddhism is about that way, and a few other things as well. And then the talk tomorrow is what is meditation, the next one is what is mindfulness, the next one is what is the Eightfold Path. And then on Sunday, we're going to do a workshop. It's an hour-long workshop that I've used in universities and taught in many different places. It's also online at YouTube, but we're going to give you an opportunity to do this. It's a very neat little workshop about looking at dependent origination from a totally different angle than it's usually taught. It's looked at in the context of human cognition, in cognitive psychology and human cognition, the steps of human cognition that happen, and how the Buddha set this up, and how he came up with these 12 links, and how they can help you in daily life as an independent management system to help you shift from unwholesome reactions into, it's like a behavioral management system really, from unwholesome reactions over into wholesome responding to what is happening in your life. It's taught from what they call the phenomenological angle of one event at a time. So when you go through the workshop and you have the chart in front of you and you learn the pieces the way we set it up, you can then take anger and figure out exactly precisely how it happens, or depression, or grief, or anxiety, anything you want. And you learn the difference between, it's a very defined difference between what a feeling is and what an emotion is, and how you can change the person's habitual tendencies. But you don't do it, they do it themselves. So it's really fun. It's fun. Teresa likes it. She likes the chart. And then that's what we're going to do. And that has a little PowerPoint with it, which actually was the workshop that I was asked to put that together. So we're going to use that little PowerPoint. That's on, right? On Sunday evening, right? Okay, and then on Monday, we're going to be talking about living the Dhamma in modern life. And that's going to look at, many people ask, did the Buddha did he leave us certain things? And did he leave us a measurable outcome chart? He did. And we're going to look at that. And then he also left us some other things that we might run into this weekend, which are interesting because he left us a developmental chart. That as a practitioner, as a meditator, you can have this chart and you can see where you are in your development as you go along. This is not a loose thing. It was a program that progressed through certain things, and you can tell where you are. You can tell where you are. You're not in the dark. He didn't leave you hanging. And then another thing that I will go to look at with you, it's very simple, is that he left us a modes of progress chart. The modes of progress are really cool. They're really neat. They define what's probably on target and what's off target for going down this pretty directly, down this path. And it identifies it, And it's pretty simple, 4 pieces to it. So those are some of the things that we're going to do. In the last talk, the last one we're having, I told Teresa it's just the way I teach. I like to, my whole idea about teaching is if I can help you take this into life, if you can't figure out, especially young people, if you can't figure out how this is priceless today, you're not going to support the Sangha in the future, and you're not going to preserve this for the future generations. Our job, the way I see it in the Sangha today, is to get right to the heart of the matter. If you're taking this out of here into your life, and it becomes priceless for you at home, at work, at school, all through everything, then you are going to protect it for future generations and help us to do that. Our job in the Sangha is to dedicate our lives to doing the this full time. I've never had so much time. You know, when I closed my business, sold, just gave everything away, mostly gave everything away. I sold some things, but mostly gave everything away, took all the money and dumped it in a pot to start to build this place and help work with it and study. And I never have spent so much time on one thing to learn something and just have endless time and run into a topic somewhere along the line where I just decided to spend a whole entire 6 months on that topic to figure out what in the world was this, where did this come from, and get to go to it. When I traveled, like last year, I was out of the country 6.5 months. It's very funny. I was in Germany first, and I told someone, you know, as soon as I get home, I'm going to send you that. And I still had to go across Russia into, you know, Korea and Indonesia and Singapore and Sri Lanka and Thailand and Burma and the West Coast and home. And 6.5 months later, I had no idea what the note meant. Remember to send him this from Germany. And I said to Bhante, this is too long, too long. You know, one time over and back or for a couple months, but don't ever do this to me again. I can't fulfill things for people because as soon as I get home, I'll say, this was pretty fun. So anyway, the last night day talk that we give is going to be loving kindness in daily life. And what I decided to do with that talk was to try to show you what happened to some of these students by telling you a little bit about their stories, not just staying in the text. So tonight it's really talking about what is Buddhism. Can we talk about what it is? Now, one of the interesting things about it is that Buddhism, we talk about bhavana, and we have thought for, we generally assume bhavana means meditation, development of meditation, development of mind. But it's also the development of human behavior. And Dr. Pramasiri, you know, Dr. Pramasiri in Sri Lanka, he talks about this a lot when he gives lectures and things. And I really like the way he puts this. He talks about Buddhism was a program for a development of human behavior. And he talks about it as a mental condition leading to the change of, that allows for the change of the human behavior. It's a way for a person, the way the person sees the world. And what he's saying is in alignment with what we're teaching, because we talk to you about atta and anatta a lot. We talk to you about right view is fulfilled by adopting anatta perspective. So the perspective is the way that you choose to see the world. So what does it mean to choose we say anatta instead of saying no self, which they admitted the universities over there caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. You know, I don't want to disappear. I might, you know, I had two guys were at a talk in Washington Buddhist Vihar, and I was collecting donations, and you know, Bhante Punaji was giving the talk, and he had a break, and he was going to come back and talk about anatta. That was the next subject. This is a very long thing. It was on a Saturday. These two guys were engineers, and they were out in the lobby, and the one says to the other, I don't want to go back in there. He says, why? Now he's going to talk about us disappearing, and I don't want to disappear. He says, why? Because I finally have a date with Norma. I don't think it was about disappearing. Just last week, I had somebody say, yeah, well, they can talk about Nibbana all they want, but you know what happens to you when you get to Nibbana? You're not here anymore. And I went, wait a second. He was under the tree, and the Buddha sat there, and he became awake. He was around for 45 years, or I wouldn't be here right now. He gave 86,000 suttas in 45 years he taught. And that's what we spend our time learning from, right? He must have still been here. So there's a lot of confusion about, but anyway, we say anatta, another way of looking at it is this. If you're preoccupied with the self, everything becomes personal. And we come to the conclusion that everything is happening to me. That's what happens. And if everything is happening to me, I had a breakdown once when I was 41, a very serious one. I'm 65 now, I'm over that. But when it happened to me, I felt the weight of the whole earth on top of me when this happened. It's just indescribable. You have to experience, I hope you never do, but to experience something like that is just incredible, the weight of it on top of you when it happens. So when he says to me, you know, what we're talking about is anatta, is no self, what would the consequences be of no self? What if you said self meant, the consequences, I take everything personally and everything's really heavy. So if you're telling me there's another way of looking at this, anatta, no self, maybe that means impersonal. What if I took everything I did tomorrow impersonally? When the guy cuts in front of me, when I'm driving, you know, on the LA freeway. Okay. Or when someone yells at me at the office, or when my husband's really having a rough time and he starts screaming at me when I get home after a hard day's work. What if I just made the commitment for one day, and I've even told people, one morning at work, you're going to take everything, you're going to forgive everything that happens, and you're going to put loving kindness out to the other person and smile at them. What happens to you when you do that, when you make a commitment to just forgive what's happening, and you're not taking it personally at all? So it puts you in a position where you can give something to someone else. Now this is interesting because the Buddha came to a place about compassion. Karuna is very interesting. When I teach in-house, in service in a hospital, I teach people with compassion and service. How can you improve or reduce the stress for you at working as a nurse in ICU? How? Or in a terminally ill ward. How can I do that? And hospice people, we do that. Hospice people too. Well, I'm devastated and worn out every day because I can't solve these people's problems. Well, wait a second, this is hospice. Okay, these people are dying, okay? You cannot turn that around. Your pain is your pain. It isn't my pain. If I go in compassionate service to take the pain away from you, I am beating my head against the wall. I can't do that, can I? Okay? So it's part of what the Buddha was showing us in this whole picture was what is essentially real and what is unessential. And we want to see what is essential as essential in a situation and not what's unessential. What's unessential? Your past experience and how you're comparing what's happening right now to what was like before and bringing it in, and then you get all mixed up. And it's much bigger. It's making, my grandmother said, a mountain out of a molehill, right? How do we do that? Is the past stuff comes in and we start to make, so this was the unessential part of what the present situation is. So to help the person who's doing compassion service, we say first, you recognize the pain of the person is the person's pain, it's not your pain, right? Yes. You can't take it away, right? That's right. What can you do? You can give the person comfort, give the person support, give them loving understanding, listening to them, helping them remember the things that were good in their life, but you can't save them from where they're at. It's their path, right? It's true. So you're looking at the truth. That's what this was all about, looking at the truth to discover how things were working, okay? So when we tell the nurse this, they start to look at this. That's right, that's right. We have people stop and look. What's true about the past? What's true about the past? What is it?
It's past.
What's that mean, Daddy? What the word is past in my spelling. What is past?
Ago.
Done.
Done.
Fixed. In time. In the timeline, it's fixed. What is true about, what's this other word? Future. What's that mean?
Solution.
It's not there? Do you know what it is? You're my dad. Tell me what it is.
The future?
Can you tell me?
No, it's solution.
And isn't quantum physics great? It isn't like this anymore. It's like that. And they popped out, quantum physics came and said, you know, the Buddha was right. What you do in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. Do I know what you're going to do in the next present moment? Do I know where you're going to go? So tomorrow you get up, you think your life is fixed, you think you're stuck. You're not stuck. Every single morning you get up, two things exist that you're not acknowledging. Number one, there's a big canvas right at the end of your bed that's gesso white, and you get to paint it every day. It can be anything you want, and at the end of the day it's gone, and there's another one there tomorrow. The second thing that's there is there's one cup of energy beside everybody's bed in the morning. The universe gives this to you. This is your cup of energy for the day. It's a remarkable thing how you're designed. You have this. What are you going to do with it? Probably 90% of the human beings on the face of the earth take this and they give 1/3 of it away to the past. They lament it. They go over it. They repeat it and everything else, you know? And they get involved and re-stimulate the old emotions, pretend they're real and they're functioning here and now, but they're not. It's just a memory thing. They take another third of it and they give that away to the future. They worry about the house might not be there when I go home. Who's going to repossess the car? Will I have a job next week? What if she says no? You know, and they go on and on like this. So what do they have to operate on for one day? The universe gave them this whole bottle of energy. What are they working on? 1/3 of a bottle of energy. You go home and you walk in. What do you say to your wife when you go in? She says, "You want to go see Harry tonight?" "No, I don't want to go see it." "You want to go see a movie?" "I can't." "Why?" "I'm exhausted." Why are you exhausted? You're exhausted because you gave away the universal energy you were given every day. The guy who runs the Veterans Administration wants to make cups divided in 3 and give it to the vets. He thinks this is the greatest thing he's ever heard for their dinner, you know, that they have once a year, because he thinks he needs to give them a cup to remind them not to give this stuff away. This is priceless. You are designed as a human being to have this cup full of energy every day. It's enough for you to do everything you have to do and face everything you have to go through, but you're giving it away. And the Buddha was talking about that. So he set up a program, and this is, I wanted to go into the Dvaita Vidattaya Sutta. It's called Two Kinds of Thought. Majjhima Nikaya number 19 for a minute. And just pretend you're sitting there in camp, and this is they're reading this to you. It's on page 207 if you have a Majjhima Nikaya. In the front page of it, it starts out, "Thus I have heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park, and there he addressed the monks thus. 'Monks, venerable sir,' they replied, and the Blessed One said this, 'Monks, before my enlightenment, when I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, it occurred to me, suppose that I divide my thoughts into 2 classes.'" Now this was one of the earliest experiments he did. You notice, this is when he was still a bodhisattva, before he was fully enlightened, he decided to start examining this problem. So what does he do first? He starts with this experiment. It's an early experiment. "I set on one side thoughts of sensual desire, thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of cruelty. And I set on the other side thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-ill will, which is loving kindness, and thoughts of non-cruelty. As I abided thus, diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of sensual desire arose in me, and I understood this thought of sensual desire has arisen in me, and it leads to my affliction, to others' afflictions, and to the affliction of both. It obstructs wisdom. It causes difficulties and leads away from nibbana." In other words, it builds up tension and tightness. It doesn't stay relaxed and calm.